Hey y'all, what is going on? Let me turn off the TV here. So I want to do a first impression on the Stella and this new rogue faction because I've received a couple of questions about it, and I really want to, kind of have that discussion, start talking about it. I'm like mentally pausing because I'm thinking about this faction because I don't I don't see this as producing anything, because whenever new content like this comes out, my very first thought is, okay, what's the point? Literally anything in business, there's a point to it. That's how you sell an idea. And I think this is seriously one of the problems Scopely has when they release this content is they release it in chunks, and it's so overly convoluted and confusing. And this is what we've gotten with the Rogue faction and the Stella is we received the first part, but logically we're all thinking, what's the point? Why am I investing my time and effort? And not to mention the new packs that are in the store that are completely worthless. I'm like, why am I spending money on this? You have to sell this to me. Tell me why. And we're not getting that. So I just want to start with this calendar. It's the Battle Pass season. I will say the Battle Pass is definitely worth it. For $20, it has really good rewards that you can definitely be using. So, so if we take a look at this, I like that. I like that there are missions in the Battle Pass. There are free to play badges in the Battle Pass. And like I said, the rewards are definitely a bit chunky. More on the spending side, spending the $20 for the Elite Pass is definitely going to be more beneficial. However, when we take a look at the research tree, I think one of the smart things Scopely did with this is they applied the outlaw research, a lot of it, to different kinds of ships, not just the Stella. And I think that was incredibly smart on their hand to apply that to other ships, not just the Stella, because they've even said in their Q&A the Stella will only be good for hunting Eclipse NPCs. It is not going to be good for anything else. So much like the Franklin, this is going to be a one-trick pony. It is no Vidar. And a lot of the players are screaming for ships like the Vidar. They want a ship they can play around with, they can shoot NPCs, and kind of do the whole point of the event. For the Vidar, you have to shoot board probes. And, because doing that, you're getting faction points or faction credits, which is very effective. And I'll get to the point of shooting Eclipse NPCs here. So if we take a look at the research, the outlaw mechanics for all intents and purposes, the repair cost reduction for all ships, you get an increased bonus of 35%. That on paper is really good, but really what are we seeing? Because if it's 35% of base, that's really not a 35% model. A couple of nice ones we have here is on the Botany Bay. And the Botany Bay is a weak ship as it is. So it definitely needed a little buffing up. And this research will do that for you. The other thing with this is uncommons and rares. I don't think they should have been included in the research. I think that is detracting a lot of people from the research itself. And so, if anything, a lot of people are doing researches that apply to their other ships, other things that they do more often than the Stella. I will say the one I've been doing a lot of is the Anarchist Weaponry, bonus piercing stats for all ships versus Eclipse hostiles. I can definitely say that one works really well, but it's only against Eclipse hostiles, which is unfortunate. Another one I've heard is Rogue Hulls, bonus HHP for all ships. That's hull hit points. I've heard that one is very effective as well. And then there is, if I can find it here, there is one that reduces the amount of uncommons that are required. So that one is definitely a good research itself. So I think the research tree, even though there are some issues with it, I think it is probably the welcome addition aspect of this whole event. Now, when we get to actually hunting these hostiles, let me go over to Rogue Space here. So when you hunt these hostiles, you are going to be getting the Eclipse security codes. And for that, you go into the faction store and you go and buy the directives, rep, and credits. So you're going to get rogue credits, uncommon Eclipse directives, which is for armadas, and the rogue reputation, increasing your reputation. Yep, and it looks like I can't get mine. Then you go and you use your data and transition data to directives for our armada directives. And then here you would take the loot from armadas and go ahead and buy the uncommon parts, which is the uncommon uranium. And that is going to be applicable to the Stella. Those are the ship parts for the Stella. And then the research credits will go to outlaw research that will be required when you try to do that. So this store in itself it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You have to be running a lot of armadas. So you have to be in a very big alliance to be running a lot of armadas to be getting this currency in the first place. So here's the question. So let's say I have 100 blueprints to build the Stella. So I go ahead and build the Stella. I take my uncommon ship parts. I already bought a set, so I have that. I tier it up, and then I scrap it. And then I get a token. And the token lets me build it up again from the second tier. So I go through this again. And then I'm going to take that Stella out. And I am going to hunt these down, because with the Stella, I'm going to be able to get a bonus of these parts, of these security codes. And so I go back to the faction store and I buy these again. And I get those rogue credits, armadas. And it seems like I'm starting to form a circle, a repeating circle of things that happen. So everything with the Stella revolves around the rogue store. The rogue store revolves around the Stella. So what's the point? Where is the part of this that helps us in our overall gameplay? For me specifically, how does this help me get an enterprise? That's my thinking. Where in here do I get something towards my enterprise? Now, what I think they'll eventually do, I think they'll probably eventually work alliance or faction credits in here, faction points in here, which will be a repeat of the Vidar. So they could do that. I think it would be really helpful for people who have lost out on the Vidar, didn't want to buy the Vidar, and now everything in the Rogue event is free. You can do this all for free, or you can grind it up, and that would be really effective for that pool of players. I don't know how many players out there are like that, but it would definitely help them out. So I think the bigger issue is a couple of things. We look at this space, and they're saying that this is outlaw space. What exactly is an outlaw? And does it really need a faction? Because I thought as independents, we're outlaws, we're rogues. I thought that was the floating term that was being used here to describe us, which is why we're not technically part of the Federation, even when we're aligned with the Federation. We act outside of the Federation to do missions for the Klingons, the Romulans, and the Federation because they can't do it because, their governments would not allow them to do certain things. So I'm still wanting to know from Scopely what exactly is the point of all of this. And I think like with the Vidar, and I swear to God that they did this with the Borg event, is they had to turn it into something so they're like, you know what, you can continue hunting Borg probes and get faction credits. So I would say that if this event turns into something where there's farmable badges, that would be highly useful for the free-to-play player community. And I think that would be really cool for a lot of other people who, buy some things, but they don't want to buy a faction rep pack just for a badge. And since there are so many officers that aren't worth upgrading, but if we were getting free badges, we would definitely be upgrading and maxing out all of these officers just for their stats alone. And you really never know when an officer is going to come in handy, such as Gala. Gala has come in to be really handy in this event. And so that's kind of where we're at and where we're kind of stuck with things on this is trying to figure out what is the end game, what is the purpose? Because if we knew that purpose, Scopely, if we knew what we were what we were playing for, there would be a lot more involvement. There's so many people talking in global chat, like, what's the point? I don't understand what the point of this is. And there are going to be people who purchase packs and compete in the Armada leaderboards because they have a natural competitive streak. That's just natural. And, more power to them. If they want to invest their money in this type of event, definitely go for it. But I think on the whole, a lot of the players are thinking this is a rewind of the Vidar and Borg faction. And it's more of the same. And we're getting less of that originality. There's so many things you could have done with Harry Mudd, and you gave us this. So with that being said, I think it just kind of leaves me with, kind of what's the point? Should I even be focusing on this? Is it going to be really important? I'm still waiting to get that confirmation. So in the meantime, I was going to actually buy 2 faction packs today because I'm trying to get my Enterprise, but it's kind of at that point where it's just not worth it. I mean, I would love to fly around in the Enterprise and get that, but in order for me to do that, I need 108,000 faction credits, and pack wise, that's probably going to be. Let's see if I can do my math right here. It's at least 6 packs, about $600. So I'm going to keep grinding it out. I'm not going to become too worried with it, and just kind of play along and do my thing. Kind of wait and see what they do with the Rogue faction. I don't think it should be in the faction store. I didn't think the augments should be in the faction store. They're not an augment. The factions that belong in the faction store are Cardassians, are Ferengi, are things like that. You know, the main powers in the Star Trek universe. Those are the factions that belong in the store. The Augments got one episode of TOS, couple of episodes in Enterprise, and I'm trying to think. Oh, Deep Space Nine got a couple of episodes with their Augments, and they're turning them into this huge faction when they really didn't have that much of an impact. The Augments were chosen for a Star Trek movie because of one single character. And so, you know, I think when you compare that against factions like the Ferengi and like the Cardassians, who've had, I want to say, involved in 100 episodes between all of the series, I think that's a real big disservice to what this game could be. And if they can't pull those in yet, then I wouldn't make these other things factions. I just wouldn't do it because they're kind of cheapening their own game, even though you know they have for a long time. So my suggestion is definitely play along in the event. Do whatever you're going to do. If you're at a point where you're like, I have to spend, I wouldn't recommend spending. I would just give it up and say, oh, whatever. Um, there's certain things I would suggest buying in this game. None of these stupid Armada packs are worth a penny in my eyes, because you can grind out a lot of these uh, Armada tokens. It's just laughable to me at this point. I'm really curious. You know, it just kind of it's very apparent to me how we're going down this downward spiral. And I feel really bad for the people who don't have access to a platform or who don't have access to a PC to see what Star Trek gaming can be and how great and how fun it is. And I think those are the people who are really being abused in this situation, along with free to play players. And I think I just think that's wrong. I think it's wrong that CBS hasn't pulled licensing from this game. But you know, as long as the game is still around, I'll still report on this, and that's why I keep playing this game. But it's also one of the reasons I'm trying to diversify my channel as well, is because I'm trying to make it fun, make the content entertaining, and I'm not one of those people that can sell anything. I need to be sold on something first for me to kind of talk about it and be energized. And this is just not something that's going to energize me on. So, thank you guys for watching the stream. I just want to put this out there since people were asking my opinion on this content. And hopefully you got something out of this. Definitely let me know what you think of the content. Let me know if you think I'm off base. I'd really love to hear from all of my subscribers. But thanks so much for watching, guys. Take care, and I'll talk to you later.